Mother India is not a piece of earth. She is a power, a godhead. On the day India attained freedom, a voice spoke to the nation. The voice of the first Indian leader who demanded complete independence. The voice of a rishi who wanted this country to become the guru of the world.
Sri Aurobindo was born on August 15, 1872. On the same day in 1947, India achieved her freedom from the British rule. On that occasion, Sri Aurobindo wrote out a message outlining the five dreams, in each of which India featured prominently. We find from the perusal of these dreams how significant a part India played in Sri Aurobindo's vision for the future of humanity and the world. The first of these dreams was a revolutionary movement that would create a free and united India.
India today is free, but she has not achieved unity. At one moment, it almost seemed as if, in the very act of liberation, she would fall back into the chaos of separate states, which preceded the British conquest. But fortunately, it now seems probable that this danger will be averted, and a large and powerful, though not yet a complete union, will be established. Also, the wisely drastic policy of the Constituent Assembly has made it probable that the problem of the depressed classes will be solved without schism or fissure. But the old communal division into Hindus and Muslims seems now to have hardened into a permanent political division of the country. It is to be hoped that this settled fact will not be accepted as settled forever or as anything more than a temporary expedient. For if it lasts, India may be seriously weakened, even crippled. Civil strife may remain always possible even a new invasion and a foreign conquest.
India's internal development and prosperity may be impeded, her position among nations weakened, her destiny impaired or even frustrated. This must not be. The partition must go. Let us hope that that would come about naturally by increasing recognition of necessity not only of peace encounter but of common action, by practicing of common action and creation of means for that purpose. In this way, unity may finally come about in whatever form. The exact form may have a pragmatic but not a fundamental importance. But by whatever means, in whatever way, the division must go. Unity must and will be achieved, for it is necessary for the greatness of India's future.
The scope of national freedom for Sri Aurobindo was not merely freedom from colonial rule, but a true independence of the subjective life of the nation, a freedom within. And he linked this notion of freedom with the idea of national unity. He said that India was free, but she was not united, and he touched on a major source of disunity in the nation, in Hindu-Muslim relations, which manifested in the partition of the subcontinent into India and Pakistan.
Since ancient times, even though there were ideas about unified Indian nation compassing all lands from east of Indus to the west of Burma, the subcontinent, for most time in history, remained divided into several kingdoms and empires were in constant power struggle. Despite this, Indians remained united and considered themselves one nation. Under the British rule, India politically became one entity, but Indian society became more and more divided due to the divisive policies of the British. A country in which religious and culturally diverse people have coexisted in harmony for centuries started fighting among themselves due to the policy of divide and rule.
The British induced hatred had reached epic proportions in the people that they began to kill each other in the first half of the 20th century before independence. 2 centuries of British imperialism had severely disturbed the religious harmony between peoples.
To such an extent that the Indian state, which was finally politically united, had to be divided solely based on religion. With communal riots becoming a daily affair and thousands of people dying each day, it seemed that the seeds sown by the British decades ago had grown into ugly trees feeding on human lives. By the 1940s, the demand for the partition of British India had become unignorable and inevitable, and was seen as the sole answer to the issue of communal rights. Hence, Pakistan, the first nation to be created on religious grounds alone, was born. Sri Aurobindo said the old communal division into Hindus and Muslims has now seemed to have hardened into a permanent political division of the country. In his first dream, Sri Aurobindo hoped that this settled fact will not be accepted as settled or anything more than a temporary expedient. The constitution framed by the new Indian Union tried to realize this dream by declaring India to be a secular republic and giving equal rights to all citizens irrespective of religion, caste, creed or race. Even Mahatma Gandhi wanted to prove Jinnah's two-nation theory wrong, reiterating that Hindus and Muslims can live in a united and secular India without fear. In post-independence India, people welcomed the new republic in which state and religion were separated and felt proud of being Indian. The vast majority of Indians today support and respect religious harmony. This shows the harmonious democratic framework of the country.
At present, we are facing a massive cultural onslaught from the globalized media dominated by the West. But the main problem is that many of our Indian modern youth are lured not by the true and positive genius of the Western culture, but by its superficial, glamorous, and degenerate forms. All great and new creation has to come from the youth, and India at present needs such a new and massive creative effort to fulfill her mission in the world. The central thrust of the effort involves a cultural regeneration, building a new India on the foundation of the inborn genius of our ancient civilization and culture. As the youth of India, we have to strive to fully manifest Sri Aurobindo's vision of a united India into reality. It is important to value and practice religious harmony, the dharma of the Indian society, Indian nation, and youth today is to revive India's ancient spiritual knowledge and experience in all its splendor, depth, and fullness. The Indian spirituality must flow into new forms of philosophy, literature, art, science, and critical knowledge.
The solution to modern problems in India must be sourced from a true and ancient Indian knowledge and spirit to formulate a greater synthesis of spiritualized society. With love for one another and practicing the ideals of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, Sri Aurobindo's dream for a free and united India can be realized and will help India grow to a world power.
Sri Aurobindo's second dream was for the resurgence and liberation of people of Asia and a great role in the progress of human civilization. It is about the freedom of Asian people. After 1947, we find that gradually colonies have broken down in Asia and Asia has earned her freedom. In the 20th century, the entire world considered USA, Japan, Russia, and some of the European countries as global leaders. But in the 21st century, two more countries from Asia emerged as global leaders, that are India and China. A global leader is one who takes part in the major world affairs and works for maintaining peace and tranquility and can extend all types of help in preventing the global crisis such as poverty, hunger, climate change and food insecurity. Since independence, India became a part of all important international organizations such as UNO, World Bank, IMF, UNESCO, etc. It played a significant role in the creation of non-aligned movement during the Russia-USA Cold War period. In the first 3 to 4 decades after independence, India could not play any major role in the world affairs. But currently, India is at the contour of the world leader for its contribution to each and every continent of the world. Being a part of South Asia, India takes a leading role in promoting peace, financial stability, and facilitating trade among South Asian countries under SAARC. India has taken initiatives to develop a joint response in bringing SAARC together and to fight against the pandemic. This neighborhood collaboration should be a model for the world. India formed South Cooperation with Brazil and South Africa to provide financial help to the least developed countries of the world because they were earlier dependent only on the North. Sri Aurobindo's second dream concerns the rise of Asia, and today Much is being said about Asia becoming a major player in the world market. India and China are often spoken as holding the key to the economic future of the world. If this is all the destiny of India and that of Asia as an economic giant in the drive for new developing globalization, then we have lost a great opportunity.
Territorial disputes over the Kashmir region sparked two of the three major Indo-Pakistan wars in 1947 and in 1965, and also a limited war in 1999. Although both the countries have maintained a fragile peace since 2003, they regularly exchange fire across a contested border known as Line of Control. The Navy recently declared a no-fly zone around its installations in West Bengal for non-conventional aerial objects, drones and unmanned aerial vehicles. The move comes in the wake of an attack on Indian Air Force Station in Jammu with armed drones and reported sightings of similar objects around the sensitive region near the India-Pakistan border. Nearly the three-decade-long armed conflict between Sri Lankan forces and the LTTE came to an end in May 2009. India's consistent position is in a favor of a negotiated political settlement which is acceptable to all the communities within the framework of United Sri Lanka and which is consistent with democracy, pluralism and respect for human rights. The year 2021 marks the golden jubilee of Bangladesh Liberation War. It also marks 50 years since the establishment of bilateral diplomatic ties between India and one of India's closest neighbor, Bangladesh. When the inhabitants of the East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, were fighting with Pakistan army for their liberation and for their new dream nation, then India was on their side. In June 15, 2020, India and Chinese troops engaged in a clash that left 20 Indian soldiers dead while causing unspecified number of Chinese casualties. The clash is a part of broader border standoff along the Galvan River between two forces on the line of actual control that is yet to be resolved. The Asia that Sri Aurobindo is speaking is an Asia fertilized by powerful rivers of spirituality, many emanating from India. The Asia that received Buddhism and Hinduism and made its own forms of these. The Asia through which Islam spread, not as an orthodoxy but as Sufi mysticism. The Asia in which Confucianism, Taoism and Shinto mingle their rivers with Buddhism in new creative forms through many regional histories. The eclectic spiritual continent called Asia is what Sri Aurobindo is referring to. To approach this, we have to move our attention from material and economic to the depths of cultural and spiritual.
Today, I am going to talk about the third dream of Sri Aurobindo. India cannot perish. Our race cannot become extinct because among all divisions of mankind, it is India that is reserved the highest and the most splendid destiny and most essential to the future of the human race. It is she who must send forth from herself the future religion of the entire world, the eternal religion, which has to harmonize all religion, science, and philosophy and make mankind one soul. Sri Aurobindo clearly saw that India, of all nations, with her enormous culture heritage and spiritual and yogic knowledge, would be the best to equip to lead to a new and more conscious world order. Sri Aurobindo's third dream concerns world unity. Given the forces of globalization weaving to a single lifestyle across the world today, it would seem that this dream is close to fulfillment. India is cradle of human race, birthplace of human speech, and mother of history, grandmother of tradition, and great-grandmother of legends. At the time of independence, India, bequeathed with shattered economy, widespread of illiteracy, and shocking poverty. Economical, political, and social structure has to be reconstructed for genuine development of the country over the decades. India's beauty lies in unity in diversity. It sets an example to all the nations by highlighting morals and values of the citizens who respect each other despite different backgrounds and cultures. Diversity can also be the origin of internal disputes, but unity in diversity plays a big role in maintaining peaceful coexistence of the people of different culture and background, blending and making a composite culture. independent India viewed its membership in United Nations as a guarantee of internal peace and security. India stood forefront in UN's ultimate struggle against colonialism and apartheid.
India's status as a founding member of Non-Aligned Movement (G4) and the Group of 77 cemented its position with the UN system as a leading advocate of concerns and aspirations of the developing countries and the creation of more equitable economic and political order. India was among the most outspoken critics of apartheid in South Africa, being the first country to have raised an issue in UN in 1946. Recently, Prime Minister Modi has called for SAARC and G20 meetings as India engaged not only with the Quad countries but also reached to its immediate surroundings. India joined the UNSC in January 2021 for a 2-year term as 10 repeating non-permanent members. India will organize its meetings focused on key areas of maritime security, peacekeeping and counter-terrorism. Over a period of time, BRICS countries, of which India being an active member, have come together to deliberate on important issues under the 3 pillars of political and security, economic and financial, and cultural and people, in two-people exchange. India showed that it is capable of working for the global community. The recent COVID pandemic has exposed the lack of global leadership, and India stepped in where it could, despite challenges at home. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has set up a response fund for ASEAN countries. India has supplied emergency medicines for United States and even China. India promised to supply vaccines for low and middle income countries, including neighbors Bangladesh and Nepal. As the world prepares for new order, India is ready to claim its place as a continent-sized country with 1/6 of the world population and a proven ability to lead the world during a crisis. India's foreign policy is based on ethos, Vasudevaya Kutumbakam, and a good Samaritan. Let us all remember that though Sri Aurobindo had struggled for India and India's highest and widest freedom, he was not limited in his vision and will to India's alone. For him, India was starting point for human transformation and the hub for universal evolution of consciousness. Sri Aurobindo had tremendous faith in youth of India. Our call is to the young, wrote Sri Aurobindo. It is the young who can build the new world, not those who accept the competitive individualism, the capitalism and the materialistic communism of the West as India's future, nor who enslave to the old religion formulas and cannot accept the transformation of life by the Spirit. But for all those who are free in mind and heart to accept the completer truth and a greater ideal.
Sri Aurobindo's fourth dream is that of India's spiritual gift to humanity. The word used by Sri Aurobindo to denote Indian genius is spirituality. Spirituality is the master key to the Indian mind, says Sri Aurobindo. The core of spirituality is the effort and aspiration towards coming into some form of direct contact or union with the supreme source of our own being and the universe. Sri Aurobindo says that given the changing circumstances and anxieties of our times, people will turn more and more towards spiritual solutions and look to India and her long history of spiritual experimentation for solutions. Some of the greatest influencers and architects of the Indian civilization and culture have been the rishis and the yogis, the great preceptors of the Sanatana Dharma. It is because of this that India has always been nurtured by the perennial streams of living dharma. Later, Buddhism and Jainism emphasized on dharma, spiritual awakening through the knowledge of our own self. In recent years, the Sufi, Bhakti and Sant movements of the 16th century had come into contact with the sages and seers of India and considered all human beings as equal and emphasized on pure life, devotional love and service to humanity.
The future mission of India is to build a new civilization based on the principles of spirituality and yoga. The central effort involved here is to recover the spiritual intuition and vision of life and
and applied comprehensively to every activity of individual and collective life, such as education, philosophy, science, business, economics, commerce, as well as self development. Amidst the pandemic, people have started to look into the natural and spiritual aspects of life for relieving stress or adopting a healthier lifestyle. People have chosen to meditate or do yoga in many different forms, and ancient remedies several other ancient medical remedies that have originated in India. Sri Aurobindo warns that it would indeed be a pity when the world's most needs India's spiritual gift. The citizens of modern India, attracted by the trinkets of global materialism, would devalue or cast away the richness of the true Indian soul. While the Western world is evolving into the non-materialistic aspect of life, the spirituality, young Indian citizens are adopting the materialistic shallow culture in order to fit in within the world. Thousands of years ago, our seers discovered that through our thoughts, emotions, and actions are determined by our level of consciousness. Thus, the answer to all our personal and social problems is elevating our level of consciousness or self-awareness. Without purity of mind and body, we cannot manifest our inner perfection and divinity. The central life force of India has always been her culture and tradition.
For the well-being of our nation, it is therefore imperative that we draw our sustenance from this life center. Strengthening of spirituality, the nation's lifeblood, is possible only by a strong grounding in the practice of Swadharma. The rejuvenation of our society depends on increasing the number of such spiritually centered citizens. It is this integral oneness, physical, cultural, and spiritual, which will be the glory of India tomorrow. All the ferment and turmoil of the past and the present, however disconcerting and discouraging, are but the churning of the ocean of force, the travail of the soul of India for the birth of a divine humanity. India is not for herself, but for the divine, and as the chosen instrument of the divine for the entire world. For the spiritual gift of India to answer the need of the hour, new young devoted leaders are necessary, not only at the official or institutional levels, but at the grassroots. According to Sri Aurobindo, each nation is a Shakti or power of the evolving spirit in humanity and lives by the principle by which it embodies. India is the Bharat Shakti, the living energy of a great spiritual conception, and fidelity to it is the very principle of her existence. For by its virtue alone, she has been one of the immortal nations. This alone had been the secret of her amazing persistence and perpetual force of survival and revival.
Fifth dream of Sri Aurobindo. The final dream was a step in evolution which would raise man to a higher and larger consciousness and begin the solutions of the problems which have perplexed and vexed him since he first began to think and to dream about individual perfection and a perfect society. Sri Aurobindo. To understand this great vision of his, we first need to understand about human consciousness and its entanglement with the yielding of these solutions. Consciousness refers to an individual awareness of unique thoughts, memories, sensations, feelings, and environment around us. Being conscious means that we are in touch with the root of what we are. But can we call this consciousness as an act, an idea, or even a quality? Consciousness is the very basis of our creation. Consciousness is the foundation of life and existence itself. It is not something that we can do or not do at a particular time. Consciousness is still on whether we are in this body or we disembodied. But are we aware of this consciousness? That would be the first question to be asked. We, mankind, can only think about solving these problems regarding individual perfection and a perfect society when we raise our human consciousness only. But there is nothing called as raising human consciousness. We only have to raise ourselves to find access to it and experience it. Consciousness is there all the time, just waiting for us to unlock it. As our access improves, our sense of boundary expands. If one identifies with consciousness, it opens new doors and possibilities in solving the problems regarding individual perfection and a perfect society.
Sri Aurobindo's fifth dream, the transition of humanity, or at least a portion of it, to a new species, man to Superman, is still distant from us. But here, in the case of other dreams, it is Sri Aurobindo and the mother who have left us their own examples towards this eventuality so that we may tune our aspirations towards it. Further, they have given us the beginnings of social formulations for preparing this transition, what Sri Aurobindo had termed as laboratories of the life divine. These include the communities founded by them, such as the Sri Aurobindo's ashram and Aurobindo. These environments were established to be the selective assimilation and engagement with all the forces of the world so as to have a world transforming potential. In some way, this kind of response has also been approximated by a number of other social experiments that arose during the period of India's national struggle for independence. We may think of Rabindranath Tagore's Shantiniketan, Vishwabharati, the Educational Center for the Making of Universal Man, Vishwamanav, or even Gandhi's ashram at Sabarmati. These are all the attempts at consolidating the inner life against the fragmenting sway of global techno-commercial forces of modernity, the overwhelming flood which is occupying the world and fashioning human subjectivity today. If humanity is to have a chance at opening up the possibility of Sri Aurobindo's fifth dream, it can be only through the creation of social conditions where the expressions of collective spiritual life can take precedence over the ever-accelerating determinisms of production and consumption in the global world market. These are the sites of soul building, not ashrams in the sense of shelter, but the autonomous intentional communities and city-states of the future that we need to conceptualize and build collectively. So long as the privileging of our national target remains economic success in the world market, this dream of future will elude us. We have to think and act differently as individuals and as collectives.